Try it again.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay?
How you doing, Harold?
I think you're crazier than I am.
Why? Why do you think I'm crazier than you are? Why do you think I'm crazier than you are?
Just because I can't get over this thing you do.
What?
All the fucking trouble you go to.
For what?
For what? That's the point. For what?
To come and see you.
Well, that's worthwhile, I understand. But
No, it must be worthwhile.
of course, that I understand.
Yeah. So why am I crazy?
Because of the complications you such as... I still think you're crazy on the transportation thing. That's fucking nuts. Oh, I'm not being recorded, no.
It doesn't matter.
Oh, no.
But if you know, I can't. I was out in California at the beginning of October for 2 weeks, and I didn't have your contact. And then I went to Florida, and I got your contact through Ralph.
You didn't know how lucky you were in the first 2 weeks.
Anyways, look at me. Don't look at the camera. Look at me. Yeah, exactly. So let's begin.
Begin.
We're going to begin. Today is November the 3rd, 2018. We are in Ventura County. Right? Ventura County?
Correct.
What's the name of the township?
Westlake Village.
Westlake Village. 1,000 Oaks?
Well,
Yeah. Westlake Village.
Village.
We're about 60 miles north of Los Angeles. Right?
30.
30. Okay, 30. And we are going to conduct an interview today with Harold Livingston about your participation in the War of Independence in Israel in 1948. But before we go into that, I want to go back into your past a little bit further. And I want you to tell me where and when you were born.
I was born in Haverhill, Massachusetts, which is a little north of Boston, in 1924.
And what kind of household are you brought up in? What kind of home is your home?
Well, my father was a physician.
Really?
Yeah. So we were middle-class people. Middle-class Jewish people.
Was the home Jewish? Was it like observant? Was it...
No. My father went to shul once a year.
Your father went to shul once a year? That was it?
On Yom Kippur, when he paid him $25 to sing the Kol Nidre.
Who would he pay?
The shul. And that's the only time he ever went to shul that I ever know of. I went to shul once when I was bar mitzvah.
Uh-huh. That was the only time you went to shul?
Say that again?
That was the only time you went to shul?
Well, I'd go to shul occasionally, and my parents would drag me there on the holy days.
On the high holidays, yeah?
And when I had to go to Hebrew school, before I was kicked out.
Why were you kicked out of Hebrew school?
I started a little casino. Gambling. 12, 13, I don't know, 12, 13, 11, 12, 13 years old. So the rabbi took umbrage with this. And I didn't like the rabbi, nor did he like me. So we had a few words. I'm this 12 or 13-year-old kid. And that was the end of that.
He kicked you out?
Yeah.
What kind of gambling?
I don't know, just little penny poker and shit like that. I don't remember much about it.
You don't remember much about it? Do you have any brothers or sisters in the...
I had a brother and a sister.
What sibling are you? What number are you?
I'm the oldest.
You're the oldest.
And I'm 6 years older than my brother and sister. I'm 6 and 7 years old.
6 and 7 years older. So you're the eldest. Now you said that your father's a physician. Were your parents born in America?
Yeah.
Both of them?
Yes.
And is the original name Livingston?
Levinson.
Levinson, which was turned into Livingston. Who changed the name?
My father changed the name. He was originally a school teacher in a small Massachusetts town where it was very incumbent upon him to anglicize his name for his profession. So he chose Livingston. His name was Meyer Levinson.
Meyer Levinson.
And we changed it to Myron Livingston.
And your mother's name?
Betty Siegel.
Betty Siegel. And both of your parents are born in the United States?
Yeah,
Okay.
both of them.
And your grandparents?
No, they're from Russia and Romania.
Russia and Romania. So your father is a doctor.
Went to during the war, World War I, on a special army plan. He went to medical school.
Uh-huh. It wasn't very common for Jews to be doctors back then.
I don't think so. I think that came later. As far as I know, I maybe.
So was your father in the First World War?
Well, he was a student. He managed to evade any military service by.
Because he was in school. Because he was in school.
Yeah, it was a special program that they ran.
Now, in your house, do you guys keep kosher? Do you guys...
No.
None of that?
No. My mother was a terrible cook. Oh, God. Dreadful. I didn't know until later, until I got out of the house, what real food was.
Was she a housewife?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, you grew up, you're born in 1924. Do you go to public school, right?
Yes.
Public school.
In those days, public school was like a college is today. In high school, I had to study Latin, calculus, and all that.
What neighborhood do you grow up in Boston?
Neighborhood?
Yeah.
This was a town, as I say, a small shoe manufacturing town, 30 miles north of Boston.
So it's a town.
And it was big, at the time it was a big shoe manufacturing town. Town about 50,000 population. And that's where my father settled.
And probably a few thousand Jews.
2,000.
2,000 Jews?
Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. And you grew up during the Depression also.
Yeah. Yes.
Did that leave any kind of imprint on you?
Not that I remember. We always ate, that's all I know. I didn't know anything from Depression. What did I know? I was
Just a kid.
Chasing the maids around.
Is there any talk in the house that you grew up in? In the house that you grew up in, is there any talk about Palestine and Zionism or?
No. The only time I recall Palestine was when a man came to my house. He had a gray beard and an alpaca coat and a crazy fedora, and he had a little box, a pushki, and you put coins in for the Jewish people of Palestine, and if you put more coins in, you get a forest named after you or some trees, like, I don't know. They came to the door, and that's all I knew of Palestine.
It was probably the JNF, the Jewish National Fund.
I don't know, I remember. The only time I never paid any attention to Palestine until I went to high school and started to read a paper, listen to the news broadcast, and realized I was fascinated with Nazi Germany.
What were you fascinated about?
It was just simply the way they grew from nothing until a very important state. And I knew that they were repressing Jews, but it had made no particular impression on me at the time because I never experienced any anti-Semitism.
Hold on a second, Harold. I want to try and move the camera. Okay. So, in high school, you say that you start to get fascinated and interested about what's happening in Europe.
Yes. I don't remember, I can't give you any particular detail, but I suddenly became very interested in European history, and especially the current times. When I was in high school, Hitler was just ascending, and I was fascinated with that.
Do you remember your mother and father talking about it in the house?
No, I don't remember that. No.
It was
They probably did, but I don't recall.
You don't recall. What's the first thing that you remember that happened in Nazi Germany that caught your attention?
I can't say. Probably Kristallnacht.
1938.
Yeah, that was big news, and I was 14 years old, and so it made an impression on me. I think. I mean, you're asking me to go back in time. My my fading memory isn't very very sharp.
Okay. Okay.
Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When World War II breaks out, you're 15 years old.
16, yeah.
Right, 1939.
Right, 15, right.
Yeah, 39, but America doesn't get involved until 41.
Right, correct.
And you're already 17 years old.
Right.
When do you finish high school?
In 1942.
1942. And you're prime rib for military service. You're like...
17. So I enlisted when I was 18.
No college, no nothing.
Not then, no. No, went right into the military.
So where do you go into the military?
Where?
Yeah.
At a place in Massachusetts called Fort Devens. That's big fort area. Now the war was already almost a year old by then, so the place was pretty well built up. And I enlisted November 13th.
November 13th,
1942.
And where do they send you?
Fort Devens, and then I enlisted in the Army Air Force, Army Air Corps. So I wanted to go to. I wanted to be a pilot, and I found out I was colorblind. So my father had a ophthalmologist colleague. I knew that the test they administered was called an Ishihara color chart test. They probably did that in Israel too. So I got this friend of my father's to send me an Ishihara color chart, and I memorized it. So the day came of my test, which was in Scottsfield, Illinois, my first cadet test, and the flight surgeon said he had misplaced his Ishihara, but he had some wool yarns which were just as effective. And they were. So they threw me out of pilot training and sent me to radio school.
What's radio school like? I mean, what's
Well, you sit down, as I remember. I don't remember how long it was.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Harold. I'm going back here. Okay. So you go. So you go to radio school.
Yeah.
Is it also in Illinois? Is it also in Illinois?
I guess so. I know that one part of it was in Tennessee, Smyrna, Tennessee, Smyrna Air Base in Tennessee. Oh, that was but that was part of it when they put us in airplanes, they had us fly. I think Scott Field was the basic place.
So they're teaching you how to be a radio operator in the aircraft.
Yeah.
And these are big aircrafts, probably. These are bombers.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. Yes.
And you told me over breakfast, and maybe you can elaborate on it a little bit more. You said to me that until you got into the Army or Air Force, you really never dealt with anti-Semitism, but you did when you got into the service.
Yeah, Joshua, I have to be vague about this because I remember there was some big guy from Virginia, I don't know if it was in basic training or in radio school, and he called me a kike, and I hit him. And it just annoyed me, and he just laughed and pushed me away. But that's about the only incident I recall.
Mm-hmm. So by the time, how long is the radio training altogether, roughly?
Maybe 6 months.
6 months.
Maybe, I don't remember.
When you're done with the training, where did you must get attached to some squadron?
I was put into an outfit called AACS, Army Airways Communication System. And they sent me to, suddenly I'm on a train to Presque Isle, Maine Air Base. And the next thing I know, I'm on a C-54 on the way to Prestwick, Scotland. Where I was in Prestwick, Scotland, there was a huge Army Airways communication system base. AACS provided all the communications for the flood of bombers and transports and fighters coming over from the States to England. And we ran all the communications for them. We had to keep them, that is, landing schedules and takeoff schedules.
So you're like in the top. You're like in the tower.
Well, no, the tower was we were below the tower in a big place with maybe 5 or 6 radio reception sets, and we'd be conversing with other AACS stations on departures and arrivals, and it was a huge, never-ending business, 24 hours a day.
And this is already like 1943. This is
1943.
This is before D-Day.
Oh yeah.
Before D-Day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on D-Day, they sent us to the beach in Normandy, where we set up a station for an emergency. They had an emergency strip for any fighters that were crippled, right on the beach, fucking strip. And that was the first combat I ever experienced, because every night Luftwaffe would send one bomber over to bomb a goddamn thing. And I remember I used to duck under the truck right up by the gasoline tank, and the fucking bombs are dropping all over the place.
So how long after D-Day did you arrive in France?
I would say maybe 7 to 14 days. I don't recall occasionally. And then from that place, which was in Kirkerville, France, on the beach, I was sent with 6 other guys to open a station in Paris. And we landed in Paris.
So Paris had just been liberated, because it was liberated in August.
This was 6 days after the liberation. We landed at Orly Field, and there were no Americans there, just some deserters and us. And the engineers that were trying to rebuild Orly Field told us they didn't know what to do with us. We couldn't get the airplane off the field again to take us back to France, to Kirkerville. So they said, go into town. This is 7, 8 days after liberation. Happens to be my birthday. So.
When's your birthday?
September 4th.
That's my parents' wedding anniversary.
Huh?
That's my parents' wedding anniversary.
How about that?
So you go into Paris.
I go into Paris. As I said, there were no Americans there except deserters and some war correspondents. And the people greeted us. They were still celebrating.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I, not being stupid, I agreed. I had liberated Paris, and we were 4 or 5 of us, I can't remember, stayed in Paris for 5 days until the MPs rounded us up, found us.
Where did they find you?
In an establishment. My first night in Paris, I was the guest of the madam of a very famous brothel called the Sphinx. Oh, God! And I didn't spend a dime. I must have landed in Paris with a musette bag. I had 1 carton of Lucky Strike cigarettes, and somehow when they picked us up, herded us back, I had 2 cartons of cigarettes and some wine and more. I don't know.
Not bad, huh?
It was very good.
Not a bad birthday.
Very good.
And they were doing it because you guys were their liberators.
Right.
Right?
I began to believe that I liberated the place myself.
Where do you go after Paris?
Well, I stayed in Paris for, I think, almost a year.
Wow.
I think. I don't remember. And then went to Germany. A place called Ansbach, near Nuremberg.
Okay.
And the only thing I remember about Ansbach was our base, the air base was on a river, was on the side of a river. Across the river was this place where these Polish women had been interned in this camp. So at night we'd swim over. You don't need that.
You were liberating people again.
Yeah, I'll say. That was very interesting.
So the war's, not a bad time for you.
No, I never had any trouble.
But most of your professional work is pretty intense.
Yeah.
The landing, the
Oh,
coordination.
yeah.
So you're really kind of learning a skill of coordinating flights and departures and
Departure, flights, the whole work. I became, they promoted, I eventually became a master sergeant, a 542 communications chief. So I ran a whole outfit.
You had people working under you.
Yeah.
And it's intense. No, it's intense. The job, it's intense.
Yes.
A lot of responsibility.
I liked it.
You liked it. Were you in Germany when the war ended?
Yes.
You were in Germany already.
Yeah.
When the war ended.
I don't remember. Yes, absolutely, yes. We were in Germany when the war ended.
You were in Germany. And is there any time during the war that you see while you're in France or Germany, anything that has to do with rumors about the Holocaust?
Not that I recall.
Because you would have remembered, of course.
I'm embarrassed to tell you, I don't think so.
There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I'm just asking.
Well, I didn't see any of that until I began to get into Israel.
Yeah. So the war is over. When do you get discharged from the Army, from the Air Corps?
In December of 1945.
December 1945. And I forgot to ask you, since your occupation today and throughout your whole life is that you're a writer.
Well, the writer, I didn't do much writing in those days.
No. But it was in you.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I think I told you this morning, when I was in high school, I was very active writing, reading, always interested in literature.
Yeah.
Hemingway.
Was Hemingway a big influence on you?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
To Whom the Bells Toll, All Quiet on the Western Front?
No, All Quiet on the Western Front was written by Erich Maria Remarque.
Sorry.
It's all right. Hemingway didn't write that. Hemingway wrote The Sun Also Rises, and For Whom the Bells Toll, and the famous.
The Old Man in the Sea.
The what?
The Old Man in the Sea.
No, I didn't like that. But the war book he wrote with shit, I can't.
Oh, World War One.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it.
So you get discharged from the Air Corps in December 1945. What are you doing with your life now? What do you want to do? Like, what's up? You're 21 years old.
I didn't know what to do. I know I was offered a job by TWA, and that saved my life.
Why?
Because gave me something to do.
Where was the job?
The job was to set up, it was a little flying from Cairo into the Near East, but the main job was to set up 5 or 6 radio stations in North Africa. And I was based in Cairo. My main job was to set up a radio station in Saudi Arabia. So they sent me to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia, which was then a community of 3 camels and a couple of oil derricks.
It's a good place for a single guy to be.
Not a good place for a single guy, but not at all. That was very bad. But since I was the station chief of 10 people at the base, the TWA's base, we used to make what we called survey flights into Asmara, Eritrea, maybe once a month. I was there for 6 months, and we make these flights 4 or 5 days, sit in Asmara, Eritrea, and it was a marvelous place at the time.
Had a little bit of Italian influence.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Port City.
Yeah, Italian, Belgian. And so that was a good break. And then go back to the goddamn desert and do that. And I had to set up all the TWA communications. And also, as I say, occasionally they would grab me to fly sometime between Cairo and that was it. And then
How was Cairo?
Cairo is a wonderful city. Oh God, I ought to read you a description from my book. In those days, it was just great. I mean, $20 American, for Christ's sakes, would go a long way. And they had nightclubs and everything. And but I got in trouble with TWA. I did, in my usual clever fashion, I objected to some things that the brass were doing. I have a whole sheaf of telegrams, radio cables, back and forth. And they finally decided that they had enough of me, and they fired me.
Where are you when they fire you?
I'm in Saudi Arabia. So they send me back to Cairo, and I stay there for a couple of weeks. And then I went back to the States, back home. So I came back to Massachusetts, and my mother was worried about my future. So I had a couple of friends who had a small advertising agency in Lawrence, Massachusetts. So I manipulated from my mother a loan, quote, of $1,500, which I became a partner in the advertising business, which then became, it was Hoffman and Schiff, then became Hoffman, Schiff, and Livingston. And with that $1,500, we moved to offices in Boston. and try to. My job was to find new contracts, which I never did. I never wanted to go out in the street and build them. And then one day, before I left my house in Haverhill for Boston, I got a letter. In those days, mail was delivered twice a day, and you could keep your watch on it, 8 o'clock in the morning and 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I got a letter from a friend of mine. I used to fly with in TWA, a guy named Russell. I can't remember, Russell something. And he sends me this letter. How would you like to fly munitions to Palestine? If so, call this number in New York and ask for Swifty. What the hell is this? Ask for Swifty. I got nothing to do. I get to my office in Boston. I won't have to work. So I call the number, and a woman answers. She says, Service Airways, can I help you? Service Airways, what the hell is that? I said, I want to talk to Swifty. Who is calling? So I said, Harold Livingston. Just a minute, please. Bang, phone comes. Harold Livingston, he said, where the hell are you? I said, what are you talking about? We've been waiting for you for a week. Waiting for me? Yes, we need you right away. You need me right away? Okay. You need me right away? I'll come out. So I flew out that afternoon from Boston to New York.
Let me just get this straight. The advertising job that you're doing now, you don't give a shit about it.
I fuck that ad. Are you kidding? I was saved. So I fly out to New York and I meet Swifty Schindler. And they had an organization called Service Airways. I don't know what the hell it is. I found out later that Schwimmer and Swifty had set this whole thing up. And they have a big suite at 257 West 57th Street. Service Airways. So I go up there, and the first guy I see is a guy named Steve Schwartz, who I knew in Cairo when he was in the army, and I was with TWA. We used to play gin for lunch every day, and I had lunch in those days. I never had lunch because I always paid for it. So anyway, so Swifty tells me.
Who's Swifty though?
Swifty Schindler was a man. He was a pilot in the Air Force. Is that working now?
Yeah, I just need you to turn around to me though. This way. There you go. There you go.
He was a pilot in the Air Force, and then set up his own single airline with a small airplane, which went bust. But he knew Schwimmer, and Schwimmer needed pilots and people, and Swifty was an executive type. And the Service Airways is a whole different, the whole complicated setup, but it was bullshit. It was funded by the Haganah. Well, I didn't know that then.
Of course.
But that was Schwimmer's base.
So this is on 57th Street?
Yeah. And I had only met Schwimmer once in passing, but they were desperately in need of bodies, of professional people. So my job, so anyway, oh yeah. So
you get there, you meet Swifty.
I meet Swifty, and then I have dinner that night, and I get the whole story of what I'm going to be doing. I'll be a radio operator. They have airplanes, C-46s, which was the largest twin-engine transport in the world at the time. I don't know from C-46, and we're going to fly from Italy. I forgot the name of the field in Italy, Haganah Field in Italy. We stock up with munitions and fly them to a secret airstrip in Israel. Israel had not yet been founded, but in Palestine. So But you understand, Israel had already been voted upon.
Okay, so the partition already happened?
Right, the partition
so this
was
is between
there.
the partition and the declaration?
Right, right, exactly. This was in February, March, April '48, and so.
And is this when you also meet Al Schwimmer for the first time, or you don't meet him yet?
I think so. I only met Schwimmer fleetingly years before. I don't remember much about it, but he does. I don't know. You can't ask him now. But I got to be with Schwimmer continually now because he was always there, most of the time. And so we set up this thing.
Service Airways?
Well, Service Airways was the beginning, and then I hope I'm making sense.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not, to myself. I'm just trying to put these things together. Service Airways was merged with there was Schwimmer had Schwimmer had a good friend named Marty Belfon, who was an ex-Air Force major, who had a franchise or had a setup with the Panamanian government to start a nationalized Panamanian airline. And Schwimmer nailed him, and Schwimmer and Schindler, and they formed this outfit, and they sold the Panamanian government on giving us a whatever you call it, an airline. We call it Líneas Aéreas de Panamá. And we're still in the States now.
Right.
And the first time I saw a C-46 was at Teterboro, New Jersey, where I had learned to fly, incidentally, after the war. And we flew then Schwimmer. I see I'm stumbling around here because I'm trying.
It's okay. Let me help you. You go down to New York. You meet Swifty. He explains to you what's going on.
Yes.
What they need you to do. That's it. You're done with Boston.
Right.
You're in New York.
Right. Yeah.
Where are you living? Where are you staying? Where what's
at the Henry Hudson Hotel on 57th Street, which I think Schwimmer paid $3 a day for the room. I don't know. We had about 7 guys. That's all we had at the time. And they sent us. Then they had this the former Army Air Force field at in New Jersey, in the tomato place. I can't remember the name of it. I have to look in my book. So we had this field there, and we had the C-46s, about 3 C-46s. Schwimmer had bought 10 C-46s.
Okay, now do you know where the money's coming from, or you have no idea? You're not involved.
I'm not involved in that. I know it. It's Haganah money. Because we had one day a guy, an Israeli, came to visit us, named. Wait a minute.
No, don't get up, don't, because you're attached to the microphone.
Oh.
It's okay.
I wanted to get
Was it Teddy Kollek?
No, not Teddy Kollek. I knew Teddy Kollek.
You met him when he was there in New York?
Yeah.
Was he good friends with Al?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah?
Very close. What's his name? Lickman? No, not Lickman. He became Ramez's assistant. Not long dead now.
So what are you doing in New York at that time? Are you like...
They set me up to teach. We had about 5 radio operators.
Uh-huh.
And some of them only a few of them, two of them had ever flown. Most of them were merchant marine operators. So I had to teach them, I set up this school to teach them flight radio.
In New York?
Yeah, in New York. So I did that. And then we were also, we'd go around to the Army and Navy stores buying up surplus Mae West.
Because you could buy them, because you're a veteran,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And we'd scour the Bronx or the Bowery on these stores. We'd do that. Schindler would send us out on these errands to get these things.
And what about, now at that time also, there's an embargo.
Yeah.
So you guys, are you guys being followed, or are you, what's going on with the feds?
We used to like to think we were, but I don't remember everybody. We like to think we were wanted desperados, but nobody paid any fucking attention to us. That's what did I remember.
Wasn't there an office also on 14th Street?
Oh, no, you're thinking about, not 14th, on, you're thinking of the hotel,
Where the Copacabana was?
Copacabana. That was in the 70s, 70th Street or something.
Okay.
72nd?
Isn't that where Teddy Kollek worked out of, or?
Yeah. That was the, I forgot what, so I've got it all written down in hard print. Written at a time when my memory was intact. I also kept notes.
At this time, you form a very close friendship with Al Schwimmer?
I wouldn't say a close friendship, no. It was just we were comrades involved in in an ideal. And the only time I really got to know Schwimmer was when we had a little mutiny in Panama. See, I'm not making sense to you. Chronologically, it doesn't. Let me go try chronologically.
Let's go chronologically. You're teaching in New York. You're teaching people how to be radio operators in aircrafts.
What?
You're teaching people how to be radio operators.
Yeah, all right. Then, this is in March or April, and now things had to get moving. So the 10 C-46s that Schwimmer bought were now flying. We're trying to get crews for them. We couldn't crew them. That's why I had to fly co-pilot now and then. We just lift the gear and all that shit, which I liked. But I became friendly with the chief pilot, who was a guy named Bill Gerson. He was an ex-Air Force major, and he was the chief pilot. And he was going to make me his co-pilot. And he was like a big brother to me. I got into my usual personality trouble with my radio operators, and they were rebelling. So Gerson got me one day. This is all in New York, and gave me hell for behaving like an asshole. And I learned a lot.
He was older than you too, right?
Huh?
He was older than you.
Oh, he was 35,
Yeah.
36 years old.
You were a kid.
Yeah. So the next thing I know is we're all set to go to Panama because they had formed this Panamanian airline. So we have to fly. I was supposed to fly with Gerson, but Gerson had been sent back by Schwimmer to Burbank to pick up a new C-46. And so we left the place in Connecticut, in
New York?
in
Jersey?
New Jersey. God, I can't remember the fucking name. We left there and flew out. We took off at night for Panama. The Treasury guys tried to stop us. They blocked the airplanes. And Hal Auerbach, who was the leader of the flight, said, "Listen, we're moving. You want to?" we're either going to go, if you want to stop us, you're going to have to shoot us down. I never forget that. So we took off at night. In my airplane, I wasn't with Gerson, I was with a guy who became a close friend, Larry Rabb. Rabb was the pilot. And we flew out, and we discover at 8,000 feet can't climb. One of the wheels didn't come up. We'd been flying for a couple of hours with one wheel down because we're using an excessive amount of gasoline. So we're stuck. We're far behind everybody else, and we're lost over the the Gulf of Mexico. And anyway, we finally made contact. I thought we were going to have to ditch. It was a very interesting experience. But we made contact with Camagüey, Cuba, a town on the southern coast of Cuba. And we landed there. When we landed, one of the engines went out for lack of fuel. We almost ditched, if that makes any sense. Anyway, from then on, we flew to Panama. Now we're ensconced in Panama, which was good duty. So we have all the airplanes, and we had convinced the Panamanian government we're legit. They send me out one day to get radio licenses. Panama had no air ministry. My job is to go to the minister of the ship, the marine minister, and talk him into giving a radio license, aircraft radio license. Not that it mattered, but they wanted them. Schindler wanted them. So I go to the guy, this aircraft minister, who was a former U.S. Marine, an older guy with pince-nez glasses, likes his job and likes Panama. But he doesn't know what the hell I'm talking about. We have no aircraft licenses. I said, you got marine licenses, haven't you? He said, yes. He said, well, just cross out the ship and put aircraft on it. He said, all right. We got the licenses. I don't know what we ever did with them. We didn't need them. But at that point, I began to realize, hey, this is not, these guys can take you seriously, and you're in a real jam when they find out this is bullshit. And they're going to find out. Anyway, we went on. We stayed in Panama for a couple of weeks or a month, I can't remember what. And at the beginning of May, we all flew away on the way to Italy, not Czechoslovakia, Italy, because we thought that was where the base was. And we go south. We couldn't fly north because we were restricted. The U.S. State Department had restricted us. So we go down to Natal, Brazil. There's a big air base there. And we all land there. It's 4 or 5. And we stayed there for maybe a week or so. And then I was flying with Schindler, just the two of us. And the airplane needed something. There was something wrong with the, I don't know, I can't remember. We needed some kind of an oil filter. I don't remember what it was. But they had to fly it down. And he says, well, fuck it, we're going to take off without it. But I think the part came in on time. And we flew out, Schwimmer, and I,
Would you have some water?
Huh?
Some water.
Oh, water. Oh, you've saved me.
You got a bottle of water right there.
Oh, I didn't know that. So anyway, the point was that we were in Brazil on May 15th. In Brazil. And we heard in the control tower radio, the whole thing went on.
What whole thing?
When Ben-Gurion declared the state of Israel. Yeah, that whole thing.
So that actually, you remember that where you were at that moment?
Oh, yeah. And they told Brazil in the control tower. Listening to it. So we then took off, Schwimmer
How
and
do
I.
you know the war is going to happen the next day?
Well, it was all set that on the 15th the British were evacuating. They're gone. And the 6 Arab nations are going to move in. And some of our guys were already there. So we take off. We go to...
You cross the Atlantic?
To Casablanca. Landed Casablanca. And the first thing a guy says to me in Casablanca, how are things in Palestine? One of the French air crew. We take off from Casablanca, and I know the Tunisians were trying to talk us into landing there. We said, fuck you. We just kept going. And we go to, we went to Catania, Sicily. Land there. That was a nice place. I like Catania. We were there for 2 days. Oh. Ooh. I remember. So anyway, and from Catania, then we went to Rome. And from there we went to Czechoslovakia.
Okay, Czechoslovakia.
Žatec.
What happens there? What happens there?
In Žatec?
Yeah.
Well, we landed. The war had already been going on now, maybe for a week.
You're in a communist country.
Yeah.
You're behind the Iron Curtain now, my friend.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The good part about being behind the Iron Curtain was they gave us our $100 a month expense account, but in American dollars. And that was worth 10 to 1 in the black market.
In Czechoslovakia.
In Czechoslovakia, you live like a fucking millionaire. So anyway, in Czechoslovakia, Žatec, it was like a U.S. Air Force club. All the guys sitting there playing cards, flying in and out. They'd go to and they'd fly from. The system was we'd fly from Czechoslovakia. We couldn't fly directly to Israel. It was too long. So we'd fly south to Ajaccio, Corsica, which was we had paid off the French Air Force. We'd land there in Czechoslovakia, in Corsica. The commandant of the airfield was a retired French major. He had gout. I remember he hobbled out to the airplane, and he'd tap his cane on and the door was open, and we were carrying half of a Messerschmitt, and the cabin walls were lined with boxes of machine guns and ammunition.
But that ammunition was loaded in Czechoslovakia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, everything was loaded in Czechoslovakia. So the commandant would tap his cane, a Malacca camera, on the box. Do you have any on the tail of this Messerschmitt? Do you have any contraband to declare? No, sir. Thank all right. And we would give him an envelope containing $10,000 cash. 10 grand. have lunch, take off, refuel, and take off from Corsica and fly over the Mediterranean at night. Nobody knew we were there. We couldn't.
Where did you guys land? Stedov? Where did you guys land in Israel? Where was your landing?
Ekron.
Huh?
Ekron, Akir.
Where is that?
Is that what it's called now? It's a big air base now. Ekron. I know the name.
Okay.
It was Akir, a British RAF field. Then it became Ekron, and it's Tel
Telnof?
Nof.
Telnof.
A big fucking airplane. At the
So
time.
you land there. You land there. Unload the weapons.
Yeah, a truck would come and unload.
And then you'd spend a few days in Israel, and then you'd go back.
Right, we'd go to the Park Hotel.
The Park Hotel?
Yeah.
What was Tel Aviv like then?
I can't tell you. I never saw much of it.
No, you never saw much of it?
Huh?
You never saw much of it?
I don't remember. Because we only stayed. I was never in Tel Aviv more than 24 hours at a time.
How many times did you do this route of Czechoslovakia?
I think I made maybe 20 times. Maybe 15, 20, I don't remember.
And always at Jatek, at the same base.
Yeah,
And then you'd go through Corsica,
right.
like every time.
Yeah.
And just load.
We'd load us up with the airplane, half a Messerschmitt, and the ammunition, fly out, unload it. We'd go to the Park Hotel, go to sleep, wake up, bang, out again.
And who was your pilot that you flew with?
I flew many times with a guy named, a great friend of mine. He became a doctor later on. Oh, this is terrible. I'm telling you, Joshua, I'm getting to a point where I can't remember. Phil. Oh, God. If I could get my book out.
Where's your book? I'll get it for you.
Go open that closet. I got a paper, a bound gallery. To the right. Put on the light. To the right. See those books on the shelf?
Yeah, these books. To Die in Babylon.
No.
Harold Livingston.
It's Destination Israel. Is there a paper back there?
Hold on. Yeah. Yep. Here we go. Who made this?
My granddaughter. Isn't that nice?
Beautiful. I'm putting it right here.
Here are some pictures.
Yeah, just find the names that you want to find, and take your time. We're in no rush. Harold, I'm turning off the camera for a sec. I'm
Phil Child.
Who's Phil Child?
He was a pilot. He was the guy that first flew into Israel with.
See if you can find some stuff right there that you can read me about your operations in Czechoslovakia. Take your time.
You want me to read it?
Something. I wanted you to find a passage for me about Czechoslovakia, about something that you write, and maybe that will also open us to something.
You want me to read this?
Yeah.
Now?
Yes. Yeah.
We took off from Rome early the next morning for the Czechoslovak base. We filed for Ruzini airfield Prague, but with no intentions to land there. At the approximate time of our scheduled arrival, someone in Ruzini would close the flight plan. Our actual destination was 30 miles north of Prague, an airstrip codenamed Zebra, a former Luftwaffe military field 20 miles south of the German border, 5 miles east of the Sudeten town of Žatec. From the air, the town Žatec resembled a movie set, almost Grostockian, with its quaint cobblestone clock-towered town square, and later Hosen-attired old men guiding horse-drawn wagons through narrow, twisting streets lined with gingerbread buildings. Less Grostockian was the huge red star stanchioned to the facade of one large brick building, and the hammer and sickle banner draped above the entrance of another. We were low enough to clearly see these, although unaware that the town square once was called Adolf Hitler Platz, and the best hotel, formerly the Kaiserhof, was now the Stalingrad. Here's a parenthesis. In 1981, Barbara Streisand chose Žatec as the location for the film Yentl. The entire film company was housed in the same hotel, by then no longer called the Stalingrad. I doubt that Miss Streisand realized that some 33 years earlier, that very hotel had been crowded with dozens of young American flyers, and that the airfield outside the city was the European terminus for the Israel Air Force Air Transport Command. Zebra from the air resembled a narrow white ribbon haphazardly dropped into the center of vast green fields of hay and hops. Closer you saw it was a single... You have to go on with this.
No, no, it's fine. You can turn it off. It's fine. I just wanted...
That enough?
Well, let's keep the book here. So, basically, every time you're going to let's call it Zebra, that's the Air Force base, right?
Say that again?
Zebra, codename Zebra.
Yeah.
Right. So you're doing 15, 20 missions from Israel to there, going back through Corsica.
Yeah.
And just loading the plane up with as much weapons as possible.
Right.
In Czechoslovakia, who are you dealing with? Who are you dealing with as an air crew? Are you dealing? Is there Haganah people there? Or
Yeah,
what's
we
going
don't
on?
deal with anybody else. We used to call them little men. A couple of, I'm sure they were concentration camp refugees. One was named Meyer. I remember him, and another guy, and Lev, and they were the functionaries. They paid us off and took care of the passports and all that shit.
And you would how long would you spend there? Like a night or two? How long would it take him to load a plane?
Well, it would be loaded, but by the time we got out there, so they'd load the night before.
You land into Czechoslovakia. The plane stops. You get out of the plane. You go rest. In the meantime, they're loading the plane. Is that what's going on?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
You go get a good night's sleep, get a meal,
Right.
and the next day you're out of there.
Gone again, yeah. We had some time. I had occasional days off in Prague.
Okay. What was that like?
Oh, I love that city. I love it. We used to hang out at some place where all the tables had telephones and numbers, big numbers. And you'd sit down, you'd call table 19, and she'd answer, I'm at 22, I'll be right over.
Sounds like a
But-
sophisticated brothel.
Well, more or less, but almost half of them were British agents or Egyptian agents. We used to play games with them. I wrote about it in this book. my friend Eddie Chinsky and I picked up one girl, and we kept teasing her with stories about, we knew about the Jews flying. Oh, I'd like to know that, she said. Well, come upstairs, we'll tell you. And then Eddie and I, this is a true story, Eddie and I, she take off her dress, and I say, okay, Eddie, you want to tell her, you want to go to the next step? He said yes. He unzipped her brassiere, and then we were flying from here to there. Where's here to there? You want to tell her? I'll tell her. Take off this part. Oh, don't. This is crazy. You've tricked me into saying no.
So you guys had good times.
Huh?
You guys had good times.
I like Prague. I really, there was something about the city that was established. Well, you know Prague. What am I talking about?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
This book that you wrote,
That's the paperback.
Yeah, I know, but still, Destination Israel. You wrote this in the 50s, right?
No, in the 90s.
In the 90s? Wait.
Oh!
Wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. Now take it off. There you go. Don't worry about it.
I'm sorry.
No, it's no harm. No harm. Here, let's take this off.
Yeah,
I'll put it over there. Let me put this. There we go. I was wondering why you were wearing a sweater.
I always wear a sweater. I'm a formal person.
You okay?
Oh, sure, I'm okay.
Want some more water? Do you realize at the time that you're doing this airlift to Czechoslovakia, how many other airplanes are involved? Like how many?
We started with 10 or 9 C-46s. One of our C-46s crashed in Mexico City before we went over. So we had 9 C-46s. And then there was an occasional civilian C-54 that Schwimmer would lease with a mercenary crew that he'd have to pay. And they'd lug a load of twice as much as a C-46 could carry.
It was a bigger aircraft. It was a bigger aircraft.
Oh, yeah.
And the whole time this operation is going on, you're taking ammunition and Messerschmitts, or just ammunition?
Both.
Both.
Both. We took, as you see, we took these crates of machine guns and ammunition, all labeled agricultural machinery. Fooling nobody.
Right.
But the minute we land in Israel, they back a couple of trucks up, whack.
They needed it.
Yeah.
And did you realize at the time how crucial these weapons were?
How what?
Did you realize at the moment that you're on this operation, do you realize how crucial these weapons are?
I can't actually say that. No, I must have realized. I must have.
Is Schwimmer involved at this point?
Oh, yeah.
You see him in
Yeah,
Israel?
he's in and out. He's flying from there to the States and back. He's all over the place. He doesn't get settled in Israel until later in the war, when they make him a colonel and in charge of something. I don't know what the hell it was. But he was a colonel in the Air Force.
Now, do you see a lot of him while you're in Israel?
Yeah, I saw him quite frequently. I certainly saw a lot of him when I had my troubles with Aaron Ramez. He was right there for me. And so I wrote extensively about it. I also wrote in my fiction book, the Coast of the Earth.
Where is that? In here?
No, it's not. I don't think I have a copy.
The Coast of the
I have a
Earth.
copy downstairs.
Yeah, I see this.
Yeah.
The Coast of the Earth, yes.
There's the Detroiters. Did you see that?
Yeah. How would you explain? So after a while, the trips to Czechoslovakia they stop. Is that correct?
Yeah, they kicked us out. The U.S. State Department put pressure on them, on the Czechs, to close us out, which they did.
How long did it last for? How long did these missions last for? A month, 2?
Well, they lasted, I think, from May until probably August. I don't remember the date when we left Žatec, when we left Zebra, but I think it was about in August, I think.
Sometime in August.
Well, yeah, I went. They sent me back. I was to pick up with another guy a brand new C-46 in Mexico City, and they sent me over to get it. And I think it was during that time, and that was in August. I remember.
But they can't. They cut the whole thing out. They stopped it. No, I'm just moving this. They stopped the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they left. We had one of our constellations crash there. We had to leave it there.
In Mexico. In Czechoslovakia?
Yeah. Got it out later. And then, ironically, Schwimmer repaired that airplane, flew it back somehow to the States, repaired it. It became the constellation, the LL constellation that was shot down over Bulgaria later on. That was one of our...
What happened with... What was that? What's that story?
What?
I never heard that story.
Oh, yeah.
What happened?
It was a passenger airplane carrying passengers, flying from Tel Aviv, I think, to Paris or Rome, and flew over Bulgaria and was challenged by a Bulgarian yak or something. I don't know what the hell it was, some kind of fighter, and shot it down. Killed everybody aboard.
What year was this?
Huh?
What year?
Probably in the late 60s.
Late 60s, yeah?
Early 60s.
Early 60s. Now, in Tel Aviv, you're not doing the missions anymore to Czechoslovakia because it stopped.
Right.
So what are you doing?
We're flying the Negev airlift. They sent Schwimmer down to the desert. That was when the Egyptians had it cut off. And they sent Schwimmer down in there to see if we could build airstrips in the desert. And he built 2 airstrips. And we take off from Tel Aviv at night, from Ekron. Tel Nof, I think.
Tel Nof, yeah.
It's in here, let me see. Just to make sure.
Uh-huh.
I can't bother. I think it's Tel Nof. It's in here anyway.
So you're flying down to the Negev and you're supplying troops?
We take off from Ekron at night, loaded up to our ears with supplies and reinforcements, soldiers, land, and they built these 2 strips in the sand, and you land at maybe a 3-degree angle upward. You land up, or you land down. Anyway, you take off the other way because you couldn't move around. And we made those trips all night for, I don't know, 10, 15 days. And brought everything in, took wounded out, and they broke the fucking blockade, the Israelis, because of the stuff we brought in. Saved the thing. That was kind of exciting. That's when I met these kibbutzniks, young kids, young girls carrying 45s in a fucking holster. It was something.
You told me at some point you slept with a 45 under your pillow. You told me that while you were staying in Tel Aviv, you used to have a 45 under your pillow.
Oh, that was when Ramez was going to take care of me, get rid of me. I was a nuisance. He really didn't like me because he called me a poor Jew. You're a poor Jew. I said, why? Because I don't want to obey your fucking orders. I'm a civilian. That didn't go far.
No?
I really wanted to be in the Air Force.
You were?
Well, I wanted to be officially inducted. But I felt that they didn't do it. I didn't like the way they went about it. You can't do that to me.
Do what?
Draft me. I'm a volunteer. If I want to join, I'll join on my own. Don't tell me what I have to do. You're a poor Jew. That's the kind of shit.
Were you the only one who had problems with him, or
No, there were 3 of us.
3 of you?
And the other 2 guys were senior pilots, and they didn't want to fuck with them. And
Okay. But you're not a pilot, so it's okay.
yeah, I mean, it's strange. I've got a piece here. If I can find it, yeah. It's a whole story about my involvement in that. It's too long to read now. You don't want to do it. Here, I'll find the pertinent point. Let me see.
I'd like for you to read it to me.
I'm going to try. On November 15th, Livingston was given a second chance to change it. They wanted me to sign a retraction. I forgot to tell you. I don't want this. I wrote an ultimatum, signed. I got everybody to sign it. I composed the ultimatum.
The ultimatum.
Ultimatum. So anyway. They worked the guys over. So all would be forgiven if all you did was sign a retraction. So I had already released the guys from any commitments they made, and everything was good, except I'm the only one, me and 2 other guys, didn't sign. The 2 other guys are sent to Europe on an LL flight, and I'm sitting there. This is when they're coming after me. On November 12th, Livingston was given a second chance to change it, but to write the retraction. Once again, he refused. Therefore, he was asked to get ready to travel back to the States the same day. In his letter, the managing officer of ATC wrote to the force commander that Harold Livingston is released from his assignment starting as of this letter. He is to be returned to his homeland. That same day, they came to the Bristol Hotel to transport him to the airport for immediate departure. Al Schwimmer was there and said, Livingston is not leaving. The Air Force can oust him, but not send him out of the country. Schwimmer announced that he was acting against the commander's decision and was going to meet the Minister of Defense that same week and wants all persons involved in the affair to be present. As a response, Schwimmer and Livingston were invited to appear before the committee. Livingston was asked if he read the declaration that he was supposed to sign, and he admitted that he did not review it. He was told again that if he doesn't sign the declaration, he would be released from the service. Livingston replied, quote, I contributed much to this country and am not prepared to be dismissed in this manner. I request a couple of days to re-examine this entire situation. Al Schwimmer asked me not to go, and I get instructions from him. He hired me, and he can fire me. You can all discuss it with him. Why were others who refused to sign not dismissed from the service? In reply, he was told that whoever refused to sign would also be dismissed from the service. After that, he was asked to leave the room, and Al Schwimmer was asked to enter. The conversation was conducted in English, and the case was discussed in Mr. Canardi's office, Assistant Commander of the Air Force. Canardi, he, Livingston, said that you, Al Schwimmer, asked him not to leave. Schwimmer, I feel that expelling people from the country is not democratic. Canardi, do you think that you have the authority to cancel the decisions made by the committee regarding aviation matters? Anyway, I don't want to go on.
So what happened at the end?
So what happened was that
You left.
well, I didn't sign the retraction. I refused to sign. And
What can you tell me about Al Schwimmer?
I just say, Maurice Kaufman, a lead pilot of the ATC, requested that the requirement that Livingston withdraw the ultimatum be lifted. He said that Livingston was among the most talented of aircraft radio operators in ATC, had much experience in commercial flying, and that enforcement of the order would lead to the loss of some 50% of the ATC personnel.
The Army was a mess in those days, huh?
Huh?
The Air Force was a mess in those days.
Oh, God. Oh, absolutely.
I want you to tell me about Al Schwimmer. Al Schwimmer is no longer with us. I would like you to talk to me about him a little.
Let me say that to all of us, Al Schwimmer was the boss. We idolized him. In Panama, the guys, I had nothing to do with this one. The guys, when this guy Gerson crashed and was killed in Mexico City, his aircraft was overloaded.
Yeah.
And so the guys blamed Schwimmer for it. And Schwimmer came to Panama, and we had a big meeting, and he said, if I overloaded the airplane, I flew that airplane myself with Gerson's cargo. I flew it myself, and it was fine. I don't know what happened with him. He lost an engine. That we know of. So, but he said, if you guys think I killed him, then I'm guilty. Well, everybody was ready to weep. I mean, he went into a big soliloquy. And that was the end of it. From then on, anything he said was out of the Bible. Now, what can I tell you about him? He was the guy that got things done. Shit, look what he did after the war. He built Bedek. You know what Bedek was? He built that into Israel aircraft.
Industry.
Biggest industry there is in Israel. He built it from nothing. I wrote about it. They gave him an acre of land outside Ben Gurion Airport and told him, here, go build. And he did it.
What kind of troubles did he have after the war here in the United States?
He had plenty of trouble. Personality. He had big trouble with Asa Weitzman and with Moshe Dayan.
Why?
I don't know. I have no idea. He never confided in me the details.
Even though you wrote his autobiography?
What?
Even though you wrote his autobiography?
Yeah, he didn't.
He didn't talk about that?
He didn't want to talk about that.
Really?
So I let it go.
Because he was close to Ezra Weitzman at some point. Him and Ezra Weitzman were close at some point.
At one time in the beginning, they were close. Listen, Asa Weitzman wrote a book called Where Eagles was something. I got it over here. In the book, Asa Weitzman said, the foreign volunteers helped us a little. That's it. Then he goes on to say how much he did. He built the present-day Israel Air Force. There's no doubt, because he took over from the the wreck that we left.
Did you ever meet him?
Yeah,
What kind? And he was.
yeah. I tried.
And he also had problems with Moshe Dayan, Al Schwimmer.
I what?
Schwimmer also had problems with Dayan, Moshe Dayan.
I don't know what they were. I knew Diane.
Yeah.
I went to Israel in the late 80s, early 80s. I told you that we're gonna make the first Israeli.
Egyptian.
Yeah. I have a big press book about that. The thing never got made.
What about? I want to talk more about Al. Because if I'm going to talk about him, you're the person I want to talk to him about because you knew him quite.
Say that again.
I want to talk about Schwimmer a little.
Yeah.
And I think that you're the person that I need to talk about it with because
Okay.
you knew him, and you were also worked with him for a while on writing his memoirs.
Right.
Did he ever feel left out by the Israelis?
Yeah. Yeah, he felt left out when he had to leave IAI, when he had already built when it was an entity, a huge entity, and they kind of aced him out into early retirement. And he was not too happy about that. That I know. So after that, then he got involved with when one of his close friends became prime minister.
Shamir? Paris? Or Rabin?
Paris.
He was close with Paris?
Oh, very close. And he hired Al. He gave him a job in the government, and Al was very involved. You remember the Iran-Contra thing? Al was in the middle of that.
Really?
Oh, he was one of the. You know the name of a guy named Colonel North. Al said he had a deal with Oliver North. He said he was the dumbest son of a bitch he ever met in his life. And he finally told North, for Christ's sake, get the fuck away from me. Let me handle it. They were making this deal with the Iran, with the Contras. And the Israelis were supplying the goddamn guns. And Al was right in the middle of that. He set it up. Al set up the Iranian Air Force. He and the Shah were close.
Really?
He was in Tehran very often, setting up, and they built it. They built that Air Force on Israeli terms.
So Al Schwimmer was close to Shimon Peres?
Very close.
They were close. Not Ezra Weitzman.
No, he had a falling out with Weitzman. Weitzman tried to get him, ace him out of Bedek or I mean, Weitzman was a guy who was, Weitzman knew what he wanted, and he went after it. You got to give Weitzman credit for all that. He was a prick. I tried to get Weitzman to give some of the Machal guys space in the cemetery. They would bury them, and he replied to me through his fucking secretary that they couldn't do this or something. I don't know what it was. It's a long time ago. I'm rambling now. God, you got me. Are we done?
Not yet.
Not yet. I'm done. No, I'm not making sense, Joshua.
Yes, you are. Absolutely.
No, bullshit.
So, about Al.
Go ahead.
You hear all the birds splashing in.
Huh?
You hear the birds splashing in there?
I can't hear anything. I'm a deaf old man. Are you kidding? Can't see, can't hear, can't fuck.
Tell me. Harold, in 2004, you told me that you had an opportunity to write with Al his memoirs.
Oh,
Was there anything in the memoirs that he talked to you about that you didn't know? Were there things that you were surprised to hear?
I don't remember.
Okay.
I'd have to read them again.
Is there any way that I can read the manuscript?
I think I have one here, but it's a huge fucking thing. You can't lug it around with you. How can you read it? Get Geffen to show it to you.
But Geffen didn't publish it.
But he's got the copy of it.
Fuck him.
Do you know him at all? Tell him you want to do it, and he'll give you the manuscript.
Anyways.
I probably have, I think over there somewhere, I got so much shit here. I got reams of published and unpublished novels. I got about 4. That I never...
You eventually became a writer. You eventually became a writer. A script writer. A novelist. Writing.
Yeah.
You wrote a book about your experiences in the Air Force in Israel.
Yeah. I just want you to see what I look like when I had hair.
Swifty Schindler.
What?
Swifty Schindler.
Swifty Schindler.
Ray Kurtz.
Yeah.
You got Ezra Weitzman even in here.
Ezra Weitzman. That's when he was a pilot, a fighter.
Sam Lewis.
Sam Lewis was a senior TWA, the only Jew captain in TWA, and he gave all that up to join Schwimmer.
You knew him personally?
Oh, very well, yeah.
Was he a good guy? What kind of guy was he?
He was a little goofy, but...
A little goofy? Well, that's fine.
I was very friendly with him. He lived in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles?
He used to come and take me to play golf, and I'd beat him all the time, and he'd force me to play 18 more holes so he could win.
We're gonna finish very soon, but I want to ask you one more question.
Go ahead.
How do you think the experience that you went through in 48 influenced who you are today?
It did what to me?
How did the experience of being part of the establishment of the State of Israel affect you?
It made me a mensch. I did something. I was involved in something that was happening that was important. I wasn't just another streetwalker. I did something good. Forget my temporary
With the mutiny. Yeah, that's whatever.
huh?
That doesn't really have any weight.
No, nobody pays any attention
No.
to.
You were a part of something big. With a lot of big people.
I was an important cog in that wheel. I'm not saying that without me they could have done it, but I made it work a little better.
Did you always feel at ease with yourself for doing this?
Did I what?
Did you always feel at ease with yourself? For
Yeah.
doing this, for being a part of it.
Of course. Why wouldn't I feel? Of course. It was a great accomplishment for me. As I say, the best thing I can say is it made me a mensch. Doesn't that speak at all? I probably wouldn't be where I am today without it. It colored my entire life. I'm sure of it. It's something I'm very proud of having achieved as the days grow shorter.
It's been 70 years. That was 70 years ago.
Yeah. 70 years ago. Yeah. Yeah. I was 2 inches taller. By the way, I forgot what I got, like something neocropolis or I don't know what the fuck, something that shrinks you. That I need very badly. And yeah, Joshua, it made me important. And I have enough ego, I like to be important. That's why I came to Hollywood, because I knew I could beat them here. I could beat the rap here.
You went on to write some famous TV shows?
Yes. I must have written 100 TV shows. Listen, the fact that I wrote the Star Trek movie helped me immensely last year in the hospital, because the surgeon happened to be a Trekkie, and suddenly finds out I'm the guy that wrote that. I became a VIP patient. No fucking around. That helped.
What's the difference between the movie and the series?
Movie and what?
What's the difference between the movie and the series? You wrote the movie,
Yeah.
not the series.
I never wrote the series, no.
Right.
I wrote the movie in the back.
Yeah.
It was the first movie they made. Took a year of my life. Of course, they paid me very well for it, but they had to. I had them by the balls. Ooh.
Did you? The
Yeah.
studio?
Did I? Boy. I didn't give a shit about the after effects. When I had them, I squeezed.
Was that your best work or your most famous work?
I don't have any best work. It's all shit. I think the only decent things I ever did were Mission Impossible.
For TV.
I wrote 10 of those. I don't know why. It was such a chore to work that thing out. And I somehow came through with it. And I felt like I'd conquered the fucking world after I finished the script. I used to laugh when guys would say, writing is fun. Writing is fun, you asshole. It's work. Who the hell wants to do all that shit? I never enjoyed writing.
No?
Well, I'm an excellent rewriter and editor. That I really like to do. I could fix things.
Fix things up. But not to come up with the ideas yourself.
Well, they're right. But I can tell you what's wrong with something.
Like a script doctor.
And how to fix it. Yeah, exactly. I did very well at that. But I used to do a lot of things well. Now I just watch porn. Don't. Oh, good.
Okay.
Are you going to edit this whole fucking thing?
No.
What are you going to do with all that film?
It all goes into the archive.
As is?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
What? What?
Ah, fuck it, all right.
Harold, I think we can wrap.
Oh.
See, you have a crazy cigar box here. Were you used to smoke cigars?
I gave it up maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah. When you were 90. When you were 90.
Yeah. I think about then. I still have cigars, and do you smoke?
No.
Of course, I gave up cigarettes many years ago. Took up cigars, and used to smoke 2 or 3 cigars a day. I really enjoyed it. And then they convinced me it was not good for my breath. I mean, my lungs.
Your lungs.
So I said, fuck it. So I quit, and I don't miss it. But
Harold, you're 94 years old.
Yeah.
94.
yeah. Oh, wait a minute. It's wrong. Oh, yeah. I have no belief. I have no religious belief. I try to bring my children up with none. I don't know if I succeeded or not.
Is there anything you want to say to me before we finish?
What can I say to you? You've wiped me out, for Christ's sakes.
I wiped you out?
Yeah. This is a very exhausting experience. And more so because it emphasizes my lack of memory, my lack of articulation. It's not good. But that's the way it goes.
Thank God you have written these books.
What?
I said, thank God that you've written these books, that it's all down here. It's all here. It's all on paper.
If you're interested, you can. Those books are readily available. There are warehouses filled with them. I'd give you one, but I don't have. That's the last one I have. The only one I have.
Yeah, I'll don't worry about it. I'd like to read your manuscript about Schwimmer.
Well, if we can find it over there, I'll give it to you. And I don't know which. I've done about 4 of them, and I don't know which is which anymore.
So why did it all not happen? Why did it not happen? His wife freaked out. His wife convinced him that it was going to hurt his...
that he shouldn't publish it. So he, as I say, in his dotage, okay. So he and I had some very angry words with each other. I told him I was very upset with him, very disappointed in him. I put a year of my life into it. I never asked him for a fucking pastrami sandwich. and he never offered one. And that was the end of it. And then his wife gives the manuscript to an English writer in Israel, and they write a Hebrew biography. I got it here somewhere. Terrible piece of shit, I'm sure. And then they try to do it in English, but with Random House, and I apprised Random House of my presence, and I showed them the contract I had with Schwimmer,
Right.
and they never published that book. I scared them away.
Good. You have to protect your work.
I didn't like the way they did things.
How was it working with him here when he came for those 6 weeks?
It was very pleasant. We sat downstairs. I had a tape recorder, microphone.
Where are those tapes?
Huh?
Where are those tapes?
Here?
All those tapes are here? Can I
Yeah.
listen to one of them?
Huh?
Can I listen to one of them?
Yeah. Well, if I can find it.
Yeah. Here, let me take. Hold on.
Okay. I've got the transcripts of them too. You can see how well organized I am. My nephew, when I was in the hospital, reorganized things around here. And I never straightened it out. That's not it. I've got about... What does this say? Can you read this?
Al says he likes the book.
Maybe that's what it... No, that must be a...
Marvin Kleeman?
That must be a conversation, because I had to tape everything when I talked to Schwimmer on the phone.
No, there's no tapes here.
Well, let me show
I would
you.
love to listen to them.
I'd like to find them. I never had occasion to look for them.
Yeah.
Let me see if...
Careful.